in DUPR terms, right? So from 2 to 8, looking back at season 1, where would you rate your performance as a GM? Thank you very much for being here. I'm with Kaitlyn Kerr, the general manager for the Las Vegas Night Owls, and she's been gracious enough to give us a little bit of time to go over a little bit of her insight on what it's like to be a GM and what it's like to be at T-minus 2 days away from the draft for season 2. Thanks for being here, Kaitlyn.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. DUPR's been phenomenal, and you've been a friend of mine for a little bit now, and I appreciate your friendship and look forward to more times together.
So you know that I travel quite a bit when I'm out bumping around and doing things for pickleball and for DUPR in general, but I think you travel just about as much as I do. Where are you currently? We heard that pickleball might be becoming a full-time job for you, so I'm just curious where in the world Kaitlyn Kerr is.
Yeah, so I am at my house in New Jersey. I live at the beach in New Jersey, so that's where I am. It's my favorite place to be this time of year in the summer. It's incredible. I always say I love my home like 5 months of the year, and then 7 months I'd be happy to go anywhere else, maybe Hawaii or California, but that's where I'm at. I currently still have a full-time job, so I'm a financial advisor at JP Morgan, and then on the side, I've been the general manager of the Las Vegas Night Owls, which has been a privilege and so much fun for me to be a part of.
So knowing that you have a full-time job, it appears like while MLP is growing and while pickleball in general is growing at such a huge rate, I would assume that being a GM is a full-time job in itself. So that begs the question, if you were looking to hire an assistant, what potential qualities or qualifications would that candidate need to have to show to you they have a solid grasp of pickleball and they can truly take some stuff off your plate?
Yeah, I think it definitely is at the point where it can be and should be a full-time job. You've seen some of the Major League Pickleball teams take it to that next level. So the DC Pickleball team has hired a full-time COO in addition to like a coach and a consultant as well. You also saw the Orlando Squeeze hire some full-time employees. St. Louis Shock is hiring some full-time employees as well. So, Anheuser-Busch, Atlanta Bouncers also has Leanne as, their full-time GM / COO. So there's definitely enough stuff in the day to do. And if you want to take your team to the next level to really build a brand, build a fan base, start activating sponsorships, putting time and effort into the marketing and media strategy, there's on top of managing the team and getting ready for events and prepping for potentially minor league pickleball and amateur events in your local areas. I mean, there's so much to do. So, I don't have a life outside of pickleball and my job. Everyone's always like, how do you live? And I'm like, well, my life is pickleball. So, and I love it. There are no complaints there at all. But in terms of help, one thing that I've been pushing my ownership group on specifically is, somebody that's scouting. Like, I know, premier level play is pretty easy for a lot of people to know because they're always on, the PPA streams. They're on, some of them are on the top APP streams. But, for this draft and going forward, especially into 2024, it's incredibly important to have somebody watching APP backdraws, local tournaments at the 5.0 level, and really getting to know these players. And it's a lot of time to do that, and you have to sit and watch a lot of film. You have to analyze stats, and there's not that many stats out there yet. Like, there's a few companies where you have to pay for stats that could be useful too on top of DUPR. But so I think that could be one. Another area that we need help in is the media side of things, so building out on all platforms. Right now we only have an Instagram and we don't use it that much because that's a full-time job or a job in and of itself to really build out Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, now Threads, a website, a merch shop. So much of that is needed, and there's just not enough time in the day to do it.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's so much information out there about pickleball to have to digest. You mentioned Instagram, and you mentioned scouting, and you mentioned watching all of these tournaments, PPA, BP, previous performance in MLP, up and comers coming through minor league pickleball, right? Young kids playing in the DUPR Collegiate National Championship Series. One thing that's interesting is there have been a couple of mock drafts done so far this year. Are you aware of those, or have you kept up with any of those? And if so, is there anybody out there who's pointed out a couple of things that maybe you hadn't seen or you hadn't considered? Or even better, did anybody just make some glaring mistakes? Like what's your take on some of these mock drafts, if you've had time to digest any of them?
Yeah, no, I've looked at some of them. It's funny because I think, first of all, I love that they're happening, because that shows, that people are engaged and really care about it and want to be involved and love to chat with their friends about it. And that's what we love and what we need for the sport. So very thankful that all these people are doing that. I have looked at a few. I think that, some players like myself, like I drafted for the first time in December for the premier level, and it's just really difficult to know all the intricacies of the different players. Like, not only do you know if they're left side or right side, but who might they not get along with. And I think, I say that, but I think pickleball should be trending towards, like, we just want to win, and it's not necessarily like who we get along with. But I think a glaring, Jill Braverman's team, Dallas Pickleball Club, DPC, won challenger level, and Ben Newell and Daniel De La Rosa are, like, apparently very good friends and play together and know each other super well. And, like, that's something that I would have never known. I think, to get back to that, like, mock drafts, I have looked at them. I think there were some, crazier takes. I think somebody had Catherine as number 2 after Ben, and I don't think that's crazy. I think she's right up there with Annalee or Riley, but I would still take, like, Riley or Annalee over Catherine. But I think Catherine has cemented herself as a number 2 female, so I don't think it's, like, crazy hot take. I think some people have a lot of the up-and-comers coming into Premier, and some more people, going down to Challenger. So I think it's really going to be interesting to see who moves up from Challenger, but more so who moves down from Premier, to give space for those in Challenger to move up.
Yeah, it'll be really fun to see. There are some teams that obviously put themselves to slice, right? They put themselves in such a favorable position to move up. And there are teams who kind of put themselves in a favorable position to maybe be relegated, right? So it'll be fun to see, of those GMs that need to make a risk and find some wins, do they take a risk on an up-and-comer? And some of these other teams, Slice having the number 1 draft pick right away, that just puts them in a position to win some more matches and just further their case to move up. So kind of crazy. So you mentioned drafting before, and you mentioned the things that you learned and went through during the first season. I'm a former athlete myself, and I always like to look back on my performance at the end of the day, or maybe the next morning after some of the emotion goes away, and kind of score my performance and score how I competed. As a former NCAA athlete yourself and a crazy avid pickleball player, in DUPR terms, right? So from 2 to 8, looking back at season 1, where would you rate your performance as a GM?
Yeah, so if we're looking at just strictly on performance and picks, I guess you could call it, I'd say, I think it's very important to take learnings for the go forward as well. I'm also, like, pretty harsh on myself. I'd say I'm like a 3-0.
Way too modest. Come on, with the trade you pulled off? Come on.
No, I mean,
that's not a 3-0 trade.
The trade. I mean, the first draft, I did it all alone. I had watched a ton of video on these players. I went deep into their stats. There's so many things I did. I only watched players in person at the APP Philadelphia and the New Jersey Open last year, and then the MLP Columbus. I was, like, the host MC for that, so I saw players there as well. But there is truly nothing like being near these players on a more consistent basis. I think a lot of the premier level teams, their GMs and teams were teams that were a part of the previous season, so they had experience drafting. I mean, waking up that day of the draft, I had never felt, I was nervous, like beyond, like I've never felt like that in a long time. So I think we did get a little bit unlucky with our brackets. So we winded up getting Benjamin teams twice throughout our 3 events, which obviously no other team did. In the last event, we had both the Mad Drops and Seattle Pioneers who both made it to the super final. So yeah, I winded up making what I thought looked like a great trade, but we just got really unlucky with the bracket. I think if we were in the other 2 brackets, there's no way we wouldn't have moved out. But you're playing against 2 of the best teams. You know, there's hard to find a weakness in the Mad Drops or Seattle Pioneers, and that's why they were the 2 best teams. But yeah, I think having the experience from last draft heading into this one will be great. I just think that Challenger is so much more difficult than Premier. So I'm hoping to move up from my self-assessed 3.0. I hopefully want to be above 5.0 in this next one.
So that's incredibly honest, right? Like, it's a lot of people just gloss over, they're unrealistic when they look back at themselves. So I think that's incredibly honest of you to say. I don't agree. I think you're being a little too self-critical. But how much pressure then are you feeling heading into the draft? You know, when you said you woke up for season 1 incredibly nervous, are you more confident now because you know some of these players and you've seen them perform? Or are you feeling the pressure of season 1? Or are you just like, that point's behind me, I'm ready for the next point?
Yeah, so we're ranked 23rd out of 24 teams. So we have a very high risk of relegation, or, you know, starting off in the challenger level in 2024 if we don't have an outstanding performance in the back half of 2023. So the pressure's on. I feel the pressure, but I'd say that I feel this way because I care deeply about it. Pickleball has been my life for the past 2 years, and I live and eat, sleep, breathe it. Like, it's just everything I do, and like my whole life revolves around it. So I feel the pressure. I've prepared as much as I possibly feel like I could do myself. I feel like, you know, I've been asking ownership for more support on that end. So hopefully that comes in seasons to come, but I think that it will. And I just feel that I'm more at peace this time going into it because I feel like I've done everything I can. I think it's still so hard because I don't know some of these up and comers, but I've done a lot of work to try to get to know as many of them as I can by either, you know, watching their video, watching their tape, going through DUPR, going through their match histories, going through, you know, their recent performances, talking to people that know some of the up and comers to see how they are off the court. Will they fit our brand and ownership group? Like, are they hardworking? Are they, you know, going to put their head down and grind? Or, you know, are they all in on pickleball? I think that's something that's really big for me. I think you see a lot of these players that, you know, they're not all in yet. And these tournaments are 3, 5, and 6 months away from when we draft. And knowing that players are going to be having like a full schedule of either PPA or APP tournaments on their plate, or drilling daily, have like, you know, coaches lined up. If we take a flyer on a player, like, I want to make sure that they're all in and not just playing MLP.
Yeah, that's important to know for sure. And also important to see what their pairings are outside of MLP. How many other tournaments are they getting experience with their night owl teammates, right? That would be hugely important, I would think, to a GM to know going into the draft. So, or especially knowing after the draft on day one, you know, on day one, let me see your schedule and let me see what you look like. But it seems like initially a lot of people were new to the process and they didn't know how to do the draft because it was so new, and a lot of people obviously hadn't had a chance to do it. It sounds like you have a really good grasp on how important is a player's DUPR and how important is that existential stuff, like, are the 2 males friends on and off the court? Is there any history between the male and the female? Are there players who just click, and are there players who just they'll never mesh. If you had to skew one way or the other, and I think you already answered this, but I just want to see if we circle back and hit it. Which do you favor more as a GM? Knowing that there's existential things, off-court things that need to be managed, or knowing that the player's skill set is at a certain level? Their DUPR sets them at a certain player rating.
I mean, I think that like within a certain range, the characteristics outside of DUPR are more important, but I think it's like within a range. So, and I think that it's hard to determine that range like exactly, but you're not going down into like the 200. I mean, so many people applied for this draft, and I think, you know, after you get past like, I don't even know, like 150 or even 100, like it's like, you know, these people are just at a DUPR low. I mean, there's people that have DUPRs lower than me that applied, and I love that everyone's so enthusiastic, and some of, you know, they were able to write comments, and some of the comments were really funny, and, you know, some were really serious and good. So, but I do think the off-court stuff is extremely important, and or on/off-court stuff is really important. I don't think DUPR captures everything. You know, some players don't play as many tournaments, so they may have an inflated or deflated DUPR sort of because of that. Some people might be stuck with a certain partner for whatever reason. There's things that impact DUPR that I still think need to be, you know, addressed for or whatever. But in general, I'd say it's important to get to know players, not just rely on the DUPR rating. But at the same time, you know, the DUPR rating has been, I think, pretty accurate in terms of predicting winners. In terms of, I don't know if you see it, but before every game of a match, there's like predicted winners out of that, and going off.
Yeah, not necessarily predicted winners, right? But it lists the percentage chance that team has to win, yeah. Right? Like, we're not saying the Johns brothers are going to win. We're just saying they've got a 56% chance of winning. So, but I'm glad you touched on that, because a lot of people do see that as a prediction of victory, and it's more of a prediction of the probability of victory, right?
Yes, yes, that's exactly right.
What else? So you mentioned there were things with DUPR that you think could be improved. Anything goes. What metric would you like to see DUPR track? Well, that's one question. What's not being tracked that DUPR should track? Or, and you can take either one of these, what would you fix with DUPR that you see needs to be improved right away? No wrong answers.
Yeah, I mean, like a personal thing that I mean, this is more outside of like the pro game specifically, but more for the amateur side, which is, you know, what I think we should, you know, also be focused on heavily, because that's where most of the players are in the world. I think having like a QR code, it's still a pain for me sometimes to like pull up, like you know, Venmo, for example. Someone wants to pay you, pull up a QR code, you just scan it, and they're in, and you know, you can pay them right there. If somebody has a QR code, or even like facilities have QR codes, like I walk into the facility, as I walk in, scan the QR code, see, like put in the players that I'm playing with, scanning their phone real quick, we're all right there. Then I can simply input the numbers, 2 clicks, done, bada bing, bada boom, in. You know, I still think it's a little bit, I don't know. I always am not the one to enter the DUPR scores. Like if I play with Steve Kuhn, he's like, oh, we got to enter these in DUPR. And then I'm like, okay, you can. And then I'll just accept. But no, I think that the QR code would be cool. You know, I personally love the 100-day moving average. I don't know if is that available to the general public / amateur? Because I know that we got that for the draft, but I think that's a really cool stat.
Yeah, so exciting things at DUPR, right? Having all of our support in-house now, having the vast majority of all of our tech builders be in-house, and not just be overwhelmingly confident at building tech, but also being pickleball nerds who understand all of this stuff. If your main desire is to see enhanced user functionality, you're going to be very happy very soon. We're working on all of that. So with that, some of those moving metrics will come back into place. Again, it's all it's all good times at DUPR right now moving forward. And part of that is because we have so many people on the platform. And part of that is because we have intelligent people like yourself giving us suggestions to a team who understands the sport, understands the technology, and is willing to implement. So thank you for pointing that out, and tell everybody, if you have any ideas, either send an email to me, david@mydupr.com, or send it to support@mydupr.com, and we'll start jumping in and trying to make this even better for everybody. Because you're right, the future of this sport isn't on the court at Major League Pickleball. Those are the superstars of the sport. The future of this sport is in amateur drilling right now while we're making this interview, right? So
yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think the other thing, and I heard it's being worked on, I don't know if this is like public yet, but I heard that like when you enter a score, it could change your DUPR immediately. Is that in?
So
okay,
it's already been released. We do have instant results. So if you and I were to go play today, and you just ran me around the court in singles, as soon as we entered the score, our ratings would update instantly. Now we're looking at ways to improve even that process, and more on that soon. I'm not the guy to speak to that. I can a little bit, but most people eventually ask a question that I can't answer. And then I have to call the wizards and say, hey guys, well, how do I answer this one? They stumped me again. So, but instant updates they're a thing right now. So that's exciting. You can actually watch your rating move immediately, which is pretty good. So another cool thing that just came out last week was the DUPR Genie. Did you see any of the releases around that?
Yes, I saw the DUPR Genie. I was actually messing with it earlier.
Ooh, in a draft capacity?
Not in a draft capacity, which I don't really know how to use it in a draft capacity. Like, because what I was using it for was to like kind of mess around, because I'm like, for example, I'm friends with Travis Rettenmeyer, and he always says that if one of his partners, like a female partner, like he's partnered with Leia, if she like has to back out with like a sickness or, you know, something at some point this year, he's like, I'll play with you in a tournament. Which I don't know if he's being true. I really want to try, because I think that would just be incredible. Tim Parks beat me to that on the male side. He played with Riley Newman. But anyway.
Questionable that he beat you to that. Questionable. He did do it first, but I think yours sounds a little bit more organic.
Yeah, well, exactly. So anyway, I would love to do it. And so I just looked up like, you know, different scores, and if Travis and I played, for example, Anna Bright and James Ignatowicz, like I put in different scores and how much it would like alter our DUPR up or down based on like our points in the games. But I don't really know how to use it in terms of a draft.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know if let's say you were sitting in round 3 and you're not on the clock yet. You're 4 teams away from being on the clock, but you can see there's 6 different player 4s that you want to choose from. Would you start banging in theoretical matches between some of the other teams that have already been formulated ahead of you, right? They've already got players 1, 2, 3, and floor, and you're sitting on players 1, 2, and 3. Would you start looking at like, if we put in this player in player 4, what does it look like? If we put in this player in player 4, what does it look like? Which I guess really kind of, the Genie's a super fun tool, right? I guess that kind of leads to the question of how do you utilize DUPR when you're looking at draft candidates?
Yeah, I mean, the most important function for me besides their actual rating is the match histories. So I'll go in there. I don't know if there's like actually any other place. Is there any other place in the world to see match histories of individual pickleball players? I don't know. I don't think so. But that's what I use. So I'll go in if I see somebody had like a really good tournament or a good win here or there, or honestly, I use it even for myself in amateur play. Like if I'm going in a tournament and I see who I'm playing, like I'll look up their match histories. So that's definitely the most important function I've been using. Outside of that, I'd say that 100-day move trend. Some of these players have been moving up drastically. Like when you see, for example, like an outsized, like half a point move up, you know, that is like eye-catching. So those are the two I'd say the most, but I just love the match history.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think being able to spot trends is super important, right? Pickleball is pickleball itself inside the game has trends that come and go, right? You've got trending points and trending faults, and players tend to follow trends over an extended period of time. So I agree with you. I think that's a super powerful tool. When you're drafting and you're on the clock, what does that brief period of time feel like? Right? Team 8 just took theirs. Now the Night Owls are up. You've got this long. Are you pretty much set and ready to go with a couple of loaded barrels? Or are you like, uh-oh, we lost both of our shots. Go, go, go.
Yeah, I think it happens like right after you pick your first, or it starts at the beginning, right? For this draft, for example, Premier is going from 9 to 11, then there's a lunch for an hour and a half, and then we have 12:30 to 2:30. So I have an Excel sheet that I've prepped over the last like couple weeks, months, whatever it is. And I have like definitely people like that I would love to have. I have the 7th pick. So I have people that I would love to have, but I have no idea if these people are going to be there because of Premier and because you don't know who's getting chosen, right? Challenger is way different than Premier. So in Premier, I think if you had the 7th pick, you would generally know who's probably going to be available. You could pick like 4 people and one of them is going to be available probably. In Challenger, it's, I'd still say it's a little bit questionable, especially at 7. So I have an Excel doc, and I will, after Premier goes, I'll take look at it, assess who's still available, and then I'll pick like my top players, put them in a, in order, which is already in order now, but I'm saying like after I know who's there, and then go down and I'll probably make a few phone calls to people that I trust or want to get their opinions on who's left, and then go from there. But then after that pick, then it's constant. Like you're constantly watching who's going the next round, because I think it's 2 or 3 minutes that we have. I forget if it's 2 or 3. I think last time it was 2. It might be 3 minutes this time.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But those minutes go by quick, and you are on, and you have to just be ready. That's why you have to prepare in advance.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually involved in one of the mock drafts that we kind of mentioned earlier. And we only had 1 minute. I wasn't drafting, right? I was just there to see how people were doing and spot trends and see what I liked and what I didn't like, etc. Just kind of look at the numbers, right? But one of the participants did a little product placement for the first 45 seconds of his final pick, and then with the 15 seconds forgot that you could scroll up and down and see any additional athletes, and just was like, took the person on the board who stood out at him. And I think they may have reconsidered that pick had they had more than 60 seconds. So to know that you guys have potentially 120 to 180 seconds, 2 to 3 minutes, it's huge. But like you said, it goes like that, right?
Yeah, you think it sounds like a lot of time, but then you're in there and you're like, that goes by so quickly. So it
sounds to me like you're organized. You've got a plan of action. It sounds like when the clock hits, for you, it's just going to be a methodical move through the process and not an emotional, what comes next.
Yeah. I mean, the question is, though, do you call your players after you draft them? That's like the big question of this draft.
I think you touched on it earlier when you said if the trend in pickleball is that winners win, then looking at the people who win, you're going to put them on a team. And if you truly are a professional, Zane says it all the time, kumbaya days are over. If you want to win, you win, right?
Yeah,
maybe there are athletes out there who came in last time and you knew they were going to win despite some other stuff, and they did. So I think it's going to be super fun. One last question. I know you're super, super busy. Moving from, in my opinion, Premier to Challenger has the huge advantage of it frees you up in your MC duties. Are we going to see, when you're in Premier, you can work Thursday and then you can work any other time. Now that you're in Challenger, there's some extra days you can work. Are we going to see Kaitlyn Kerr on the mic more in season 2?
That is a great question. I really, really, really hope so. That was like the one bummer, I have to say. I love to host. And
you're the best. You are the best.
Thank you. That's really sweet of you. I I love doing it. It's been such a joy for me this year. And even, I started in Columbus of 2022 in October. So yeah, that's where we met, exactly. And Natasha. But yeah, so I hope so. Yes, it's been a little bit of a question with some of the ownership. They didn't really want me to do this past season, but I was like, I'm doing it because I love it. And I don't care. So I think that's what I'm going to be doing this year too. I mean, this season too. I love that it opens up more days. I love doing the super final. That was awesome because I was on a Monday and my team had no chance of making it. So I was able to, tell MLP that I would be able to do that because, unfortunately we were in a situation to win the super final or to get to the super final. So I think I will be doing more days for the back half of the year, which is so much fun.
That sounds great. And listen, it's good for the Night Owls too, because it lets everybody see the GM is more, it's more exposure for the Night Owls. The more time you're on the court, the more time you're on the mic, the more time you're doing things, people know Kaitlyn Kerr, she is her. There's signs about you. It's going to be awesome. So I hope it works out that we get to see you on the microphone more. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. No, it's the best. I've enjoyed it, and I think it helps MLP, right? Everything's building. It helps the team. It helps MLP. We want to get this sport out. We want it to be more fun for everyone involved, and it's not even like, it is a job, but it's really not. I'm just having a blast out there, and I love interacting with the crowd. I love cheering on the players. It's so much fun. So
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Kaitlyn, I just want to thank you so much for jumping on, giving us some insight. I think it's really cool that you're willing to do this and show just your average pickleball player enthusiast what it's like to be on your side of the clock when the draft starts. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and love DUPR, love everything DUPR is about. I think it is the pickleball rating that every single amateur player should have. So get your DUPR, check it out. Put in your matches versus your friends, get a little friendly competition going, see who you're playing in your local tournaments, and enjoy the game together.
Good luck in the draft.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we are literally 25 hours post premier level and 22 hours post challenger level draft in New York City. Travis, you're actually sitting at LaGuardia right now, and you're already jumping into an interview about what's going on